All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into our fourth series right now. It's Chef and NASL facing off against each other. This is going to be game point for Mouz. So let's go into it and see if Team Liquid can get back and tie the series up.
Really excited. Chef, of course, is EVP specialist. Haven't spoken to him specifically on his best matchups recently, but up until, well, that conversation pending, I've actually heard that is his absolute favorite matchup. He's really good at it. He's capable of beating any Protoss, I feel, and he feels pretty confident in that matchup. Now, Hasselhoff's on the other hand, I don't know if this is his favorite matchup. I think he's a little bit more of a PvT kind of guy, but he definitely has a solid PvZ, absolutely solid. And when I say solid, I don't mean that in the sense where I'm describing, like, yeah, it's pretty good, you know, there's not a whole... He's actually solid. Like, everything he does is actually consistently strong. He won't take risks, and he will play the matchup through and through, usually a macro or timing-oriented build, and he's not gonna stray too far.
Yeah, I think, you know, Hasselhoff has that style where it's just play robust to that end game and really let the army composition flow. Get the right number of Colossus, which are around 3 or 4, and then High Templars, Archons, the Mothership, a little bit of everything, you know, and just make sure that you can always keep up with your opponent. Hasselhoff is going for a Forge Fast Expand, or what looks like a Forge Fast Expand. Talk a little bit about what are the pros and cons of going a Forge Fast Expansion on a map like bel'shir Beach Winter.
Well, you always... I feel like as a Protoss player, if you can, you always want to Forge Fast Expansion. It just... Especially if the pylon block has the option of having equal or even better economy in the early portion of the game, which can go ahead and jumpstart a lot of your strategies. 1-gate expand is still viable on a lot of maps, and there's a lot of Protoss players that will even put it on maps like this one, just to throw off the timings of their opponent. But I think everyone pretty unanimously agrees that better economy is Forge Fast Expansion. The pros and cons would be that you have the option to do some disruptive stuff. So you can see the pylon going down at that natural. That means Chef has to take his quote-unquote natural at his third base, which is a lot further away, so it's a little bit more exploited, or potentially exploited, I suppose, from like cannon Russians, that's kind of cool, or zealots, all that good stuff. It just makes Zerg a little bit more uncomfortable. It takes longer for a queen to travel, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, the other nice thing about Forge Fast Expansion is anything can come from it. It doesn't actually hamstring you into one corner, so that's I think part of the reason why a lot of Protoss players like to go for it too. Gotcha.
We do see as you said, the pylon block. He'll be cleaning that up, not going for the natural with these Zerglings, and the cannon will be up in time. Look at this, Hasselhoff is actually going for the third pylon before Gateway. So now that he has his Gateway down, it is a little bit later.
Well, it's like second real pylon though. You don't count the one at the natural.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about this, to your point, is it allows you to continuously build probes. So while you're otherwise you'd kind of get bottle capped is about the time the Gateway gets put down. Here, he's going to be able to continuously chrono boost out probes. So it does delay your tech ever so slightly, but it's in favor of having better economy. And we can see that Hasselhoff is, again, seamlessly producing and chrono boosting harvesters on a regular basis. Now, one thing I want to draw attention to your Gretorp is he actually has a probe in the top right-hand side that, at least for this moment, Chef doesn't seem too occupied with looking for. He's actually just gone right to the front of the Protoss base, and he might try to run by. Well-timed block by Hasu, and I bet he's going to cancel that and build a Cybernetics core, but for right now, that costs Chef a Zergling.
Yeah, that is normally what we see, although there are double gateway styles, and these double gateway styles offer a lot of pressure in this early game stage. The only problem is, as soon as the gateway is shown and Chef identifies that there's a second gateway, it's like, okay, I'm going to make Roach Warren and I'll be fine. So, you know, it kind of used to be in I guess the current metagame, and I think it phased out maybe, you know, a couple months ago. I saw Kiwikaki doing it a ton of times.
There's still people that kind of use it. My brother, for one, VVV Rocker. And I think one of the nice things about it is that it's just so different that it throws people off again. Sometimes Pro players will do that, but it's neither here nor there. It's not going to be seen here. Now, the Zerglings are going to pursue that probe out. And again, I just want to draw attention to this probe over here on the right side of the map. This doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see like an 8-gate incredible attack. But what it does mean is that there's a good chance that it could instigate that kind of a thought process from the Protoss player. If I have a probe out on the map and you don't seem to find it and I can drop a pylon right next to your base, a lot of times Protoss are like, well, gosh, that could be a really easy win if I just go ahead and have a bunch of gates behind that. Whether or not Hasselhoff is going to do that, I don't know. Maybe it's just another scout. Or maybe it just acts as a nice pylon later, too. I mean, there's no reason why it doesn't have to basically dictate your entire strategy. It can just be part of your late game strategy.
Now, it's interesting. You know, we don't have any pressure coming out from NASTL whatsoever. You can see that he's just massing up in probes, trying to get and keep relevant up. There it is. Where are they? The gateways. Oh, there they are. Right. So he's going gateway pressure in this early game stage. 3 gateways are shoved down, but Chef is pretty much well saturated. I feel like this comes at a kind of awkward timing where Sheth is fully saturated. He's just going to be churning out those units at probably a rate that NASL cannot keep up on with 2 bases.
Yeah, it's a really scary time for Protoss. If you try to do 2-base timing, the really, really smart Zergs will be on full saturation and have already produced a bunch of units. You can laugh at this if you want, but one of those Zergs that does a really good job about this is actually Destiny. I think, for better or worse, this gameplay, one of the things that he does really, really well is he reads whether or not he's facing a 2-base timing or a Protoss is trying to take a 3rd. And he really tries to pounce on that. And I think that's something that's very strong. A lot of other Zergs actually borrow from. So we see from Sheth here, he's already building units. And if you look at NASL side of things, look at how far off he is from really developing any kind of attack. He's got like 4 gateways about to finish, and a Robo, and a Twilight Council. That's not a real attack. You know, there's nothing coming here. But Sheth's going to play on the safe side, having a base number of units.
And then pump out 11 drones, man.
Yep.
Look at that. Harvester count is showing 70 harvesters out in the field, so he is just about fully saturated.
And we've seen this before, Gretorp. This is looking very similar to what happened between Mana and Ret. Or was it Mana and Ret? Yeah. What? I can't remember what game that was, but yeah. Okay, it was the one game Mana dropped to Ret, actually, where he did a gateway timing, a very light one.
Yeah.
So only 1 Zealot dies,
right?
or 2 Zealot dies here. Not a big deal. Actually, another one's going to scout, which is fantastic. But you have to be careful as Protoss, because if you show your hand like that and it doesn't work out, that's all the space the Zerg needs, in this case Chef, to go ahead and build more drones. So he's now actually at 86 drones, and we're at 10 minutes. You should get arrested for that kind of a thing. It shouldn't be legal.
And once he goes, he's just 2 away from maximum saturation in all of his bases. 2 drones away, so I don't really expect him to get any more drones. If anything, he's going to get more hatcheries.
And now he just builds units.
Yeah.
If he built any more drones from here, it would actually be incorrect. In fact, a lot of people would look at 87 and be like, that's probably too many.
Yeah.
Not by much, mind you. Maybe 2 or 7.
You got 24 drones that are mining only 20 minerals per minute. You have to look to get a 4th base, because that's really way too much. It's just way too much.
It's actually 3 drones oversaturated at the main. Not that, I mean, we're just kind of nitpicking here a little bit.
It's the calm before the storm right now. Both players are just massing up. And it looks like NASL is going for Colossus. He's just doing this off of 2 base. You can see another 2 gateways being shoved down. So NASL, you know, although he is behind, you can see the supply is 160 now to 100. He's behind. There is a lot of supply wrapped up. And Sheth, seeing that it's 2 base, I think he's just going to mass up in units.
Oh, yeah.
He needs to be careful, though. If he overmasses in Roaches and Zerglings, the composition will not be enough. He needs Spire Tech. He needs to be able to deal with those Colossus effectively.
You're absolutely correct, Gretorp. You can make Infinity, Roach, and Ling, and as long as the Protoss does a fantastic job of utilizing sentries, there's a really good chance that it actually is for naught. Now, I want to say this. Well, okay, hold that thought. We're going to have a big attack here. Force fields go down, and the second he sees that Colossus, Sheth says, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm going to back away. But that was actually still a good prod. I'll tell you why. It shows the Colossus. So Sheth back at home with that Spire is now going to make Corruptors when it pops out. It's not going to be a Muta switch. It shouldn't be a Muta switch, at least. He doesn't need to make 20 Corruptors. It just has to be like 8 or 10. Just enough so that as long as he's occupying that ground force with his ground force and the Corruptors are picking off the Colossus, when a Protoss is on 2 bases, they can't afford to keep remaking Colossus. And Colossus are not that scary at 1 or 2. It's at 3 or 4 that they start to become a force to reckon with. But don't tell it to NASL. He's going to push out here. Now, one thing I wanted to kind of point out, NASL only has 4 sentries, and I'm really worried about that. They are fully, almost fully charged. There's a lot of force fields within those 4 sentries, but sentries have a bad habit of wandering forward and dying. And once they die, there's going to be no force fields to stop Sheth from just washing NASL over with units.
And normally you use the combination attack of sentries with their force fields and Colossus to be very cost efficient in this early game stage. So if he doesn't have that cost efficiency after, you know, the first battle, whether it be the second battle or the third, fourth, fifth, then Sheth will be able to take advantage of his opponent. And the big problem with remaking sentries is that it still takes a while for them to gain up a lot of mana, and they don't do too well. It's just one force field you're paying in the immediate future for 100 gas. That's pretty expensive.
Just trying to get a flank on this army. If Hasselhoff denies, this is really powerful. He can take on any one half of that army, no problem. Of course, when it gets split up, that's when things get complicated, but Hasselhoff's going to abide him. And look at this. Chef's going to start picking apart that third. Meanwhile, another force moving into the natural. Good force field does deny entry. And Hasselhoff's to split his army up. This is actually fantastic army control, but the Corruptor's going to work on the one Colossus, and Hasselhoff needs to start picking off his Corruptors. They're very expensive. They have a low attack rate. They do go down. He saves the Colossus. That's such a big deal. He's going to... Oh, my gosh. It's got 3 health, and he's going to pick off all the roaches here.
Wow.
If you look at the supply, Sheth is still up by a huge margin.
Well, you see 43 roaches in queue right now, but there is a little bit of momentum for Hasselhoff.
Absolutely.
I think he should press it on a little bit. You can see this narrow choke actually makes it very convenient for force fields to go down and roaches to do very minimal damage, not get a great concave, but we'll see. He needs to be very careful about treading on these waters.
Well, now Sheth has to attack from one angle, and yes, he does have tunneling claws, but it's going to be hard for him to spend the time getting under those force fields when the Protoss army has retained so much of its value.
Yes.
Now, that potential 5th base did get picked off. Hasselhoff has been really lackadaisical about saturating his 3rd. He really needs to get on top of that. Zealots are going to move up to top right-hand side to harass. That's fantastic. Sheth, in the blink of an eye, lost his army and also is now, well, he's dangerously close to being on semi-equal playing field in terms of economy. But I want to look at this tech here real quick. He did go up to Hive. There is no Greater Spire. We're waiting for that +1 to finish. He's making Corruptors. But for right now, he's still on Roach Ling, and that's actually very problematic, and I'll tell you why. It's because the Protoss player retained all of his important units. The Colossi, he still has his sentries. He's building on this army. It's still not max, which is a little bit problematic. But this is a dangerous army for Sheth to deal with.
Yeah, and going Corruptors and Roaches, it's hard to actually get a good progression after this. Normally you want to incorporate Infestors in here pretty soon, but I don't think Sheth even has the... no, Pathogen Glands is just now being researched. It is at 30 out of 80, so he can start putting down those Infestors. But, you know... Sheth is going to have a lot of trouble because instead of remaxing on units that, you know, have a better late game progression, he remaxed on roaches, and now he's in a position where he's still going to be on layer text for quite a long time.
Oh, he's got to be careful. The Colossus are getting broadside here a little bit. Good force fields. A lot of Corruptors, though. And I'll tell you what, this fight, if it goes against the Protoss player, is going to be the reason Hasselhoff loses. But great army control. Those force fields not fully blocking off, but that's not what he wants. He's funneling down that Zerg army, but it might not be enough. And now the Stalkers are kind of realizing, crap, we've overwhelmed our stay. We got to get out of here. And they should be able to get out of here, but I'll tell you what, Gretorp losing 3 Colossi, the Sentry, and the Immortal there. That is an expensive, expensive mistake. He pushed into the middle of the Zerg production. It is... just the absolute worst place to be. You want to fight along the fringes where you have pylons at your back so you can warp in on the army, and you want to be able to keep that army on one side. If you give him the ability to get a surround on your army, just by kind of granting him that position, you're handing him your head on a silver plate.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. So Hasselhoff is looking like he's going to rebound right now. He's just going to play defense, but once he amasses those power-hitting units again, which he's actually pushing out right now, I'm not sure if I love this completely. He only has 1 Colossus. Yeah. Zealots are going to warp in on the right-hand side to hopefully pick off that 5th base again. But
Warlords,
oh, gosh, where? Oh, goodness gracious.
Top of the base, or top of the map, rather.
Yeah.
There's 6 out, 3 more in production.
Now, here's the problem, though. I mean, yes, he does have roaches to accompany, but you do want Infestors in this army. There's no doubt about it. Infestors are really important just to clamp down those Blink Stalkers. Make sure that you can keep them in place a little bit longer so they don't get so aggressive, don't get so cheeky, and you can actually hold them in place and start doing a lot of damage with your Broodlords and your Broodlings. That's very good analysis. You're absolutely correct. Without Infestors, there's a good chance that actually just making Stalkers is an okay counter, but you're still kind of at the mercy of the positioning of the Zerg. Correct. So we're going to see this off the tower. Zealot spots, sees there are Broodlords. We're a ways away from a mothership, but he's going to warp in a ton of Stalkers. And the good news, like we were kind of talking about, there are no Infestors. The bad news, you don't have Archons, you don't have a mothership, you don't have Void Rays, you don't have anything except for Stalkers. So you're kind of one-dimensional here. Well, he has Colossus. It'll help out with the Broodlords a little bit, or the Broodlings a little bit, but he still needs more. And this is a very scary number of roaches. Looks like he's bearing down on this third base, and how does Hasselhoff actually react? I like what he's doing with this one Colossus on the side, just trying his best to be relevant in the fight. You can see he's engaging over here. The Colossus really needs to be targeting down on those roaches. But there's the big blink, focusing down all the Broodlords, but these roaches are too plentiful.
At what cost? Those roaches are going to go ahead and finish off the Stalkers, and I mean, he had to do it, I guess. He was running out of options. He was cornered, but that's it. And from here, Cheth's grandmother could win the game. It's just going to be a big A move, and then she can sit back and knit him a sweater or talk about, you know, what he used to do when he was a child. Should not get more complicated than that. Poor Hasselhoff. I really felt like he played a brilliant game, an amazing strategy, but it was just that one bad fight at 12 o'clock. And when he lost all those expensive units and had to spend all his money rebuilding them, he got in trouble. I mean, we've got excellent Zealot Harass top right. We've had that that 5th base killed for, I think, the 3rd time now. But with no answer to these Broodlords, it's all just kind of, you know, bravo, good job, but that's not enough.
Exactly. The 4th base, or the 3rd base, now will be cleaned up in the bottom left-hand position. Hasselhoff is on 3 mining mineral patches after that. Of course, that it signifies that the exit of Hasselhoff pretty soon.
Yeah.
Since Hasselhoff is at 68 supply and Cheth at 199, so I think Cheth won this. Not sure, though.
Hasselhoff's just a fighter, man. He's like, you know what? I owe it to my team to give them every chance they have at winning this thing. Sometimes when you're at 65 supply and half that is probes, though, it's probably a good time to just go ahead and rethink. Well, just get to the drawing board so you can focus on the next game. But that was an awesome match. bel'shir Beach, really hard PvZ, a little bit less so with the newer version where that ramp makes Forge Fast expansion not a nightmare. And I just, again, I think Hasselhoff defended that 2-prong attack at the beginning brilliantly. His army composition, army control was very standard Hasselhoff, which is fantastic. He just made that one mistake that every Protoss player makes. I mean, if we had his perspective and he was like dual camming with us, he'd be like, okay, and this is where that voice in my head is saying, run home, Jack, run home. But I didn't. I went and attacked into the middle of all the Zerg's production, and he clamped down on me, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, if you actually noticed, before that huge engagement, he was actually up 6,000 minerals and gas in the units lost tab. He was way ahead. He was playing very cost efficiently. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that Hasselhoff actually ended it out like that, because I think if he kept up that cost efficiency, all that huge mineral and gas advantage that Cheth had in that beginning and early stage of the game would have been completely gone. I mean, we know he was at 200 when Hasselhoff was at like 120, 130. He had 80 drones when his opponent was still on 2 bases. It's just not a good situation, but Hasselhoff played it really well. Unfortunately for him, just one minor mistake, or no, that's a pretty big
major mistake.
It's a pretty big mistake.
Major mistake.
One mistake cost him the game, and Cheth was able to steamroll him thereafter. So we're going to go into game 2, ladies and gentlemen, with Hasselhoff and Cheth. Cheth is up 1-0. Mouz is up 2-1, though, over Team Luca. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this break.